Every swing, every perfectly struck shot, every effortless drive down the fairway, it all feels so natural, doesn't it? But what if I told you that the very clubs in your hands, the technology you rely on, are the result of a forgotten war? A rebellion that raged not on battlefields, but on the manicured greens and in the hushed halls of golf's most powerful institutions. This isn't just a story about golf. It's a saga of tradition battling innovation, a clash that almost brought the entire sport to its knees. This is the untold history of steel versus hickory. For centuries, golf was an art form dictated by the natural world. The clubs, predominantly crafted from the resilient wood of the hickory tree, were unique entities. Each shaft possessed its own character, a subtle flex, a distinct feel, a propensity to warp or even snap under pressure. Golfers of the era weren't just players, they were artisans, learning to coax performance from these living instruments. Consistency was a myth. Adaptation was king. Imagine the challenge, stepping onto the tee, not with the perfectly uniform set, but with a collection of wooden companions, each demanding a different touch, a unique understanding. This was golf in its purest, most romantic form, where the player's skill in mastering their imperfect tools was paramount. The game was as much about intuition and feel as it was about raw power or precise mechanics. Every shot was a negotiation with the wood, a dance between man and nature. But as the Roaring '20s dawned, a new material began to whisper promises of revolution. Steel, stronger, undeniably more consistent, and crucially capable of mass production, steel shafts offered a tantalizing vision of precision and power previously unimaginable. No more worrying about warping in the rain, no more unpredictable breaks mid-swing. This was the future, engineered and uniform. The first steel-shafted clubs began to tentatively appear in the early 2020s, and their arrival was met with a mixture of awe and apprehension. The guardians of golf, the venerable Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St. Andrews, and the United States Golf Association viewed this metallic intrusion with profound alarm. To them, steel wasn't just a new material, it was an existential threat to the very soul of the game. They argued it would strip golf of its inherent challenge, reduce the artistry of the swing, and fundamentally cheapen the sport. The game they believed would become too easy, too mechanical. In 1914, both the R&A and the USGA took a decisive, controversial stance. They officially banned steel shafts, declaring them a not permissible departure from the traditional form and make of golf clubs. This wasn't just a rule, it was a philosophical declaration, a desperate attempt to hold back the tide of progress. They envisioned a future where golf was dominated by brute force rather than finesse, a future they desperately wanted to avoid. But bans, as history often shows, rarely extinguish innovation. Instead, they often fuel an underground movement. Despite the official pronouncements, the advantages of steel were undeniable. Golfers who managed to get their hands on these new clubs found that they could hit the ball further, with a more consistent trajectory, and with significantly less effort. The word spread like wildfire. Demand soared, creating a burgeoning black market for steel-shafted clubs. Manufacturers, seeing the writing on the wall and the immense commercial potential, continued to experiment and produce, often under the radar. It became an open secret on the links. The best players, the ones pushing the boundaries, were often doing so with the very clubs deemed illegal. The pressure on the governing bodies became immense. It wasn't just manufacturers and rebellious golfers, but even some prominent figures within the golf establishment began to question the wisdom of the ban. The sheer practicality and performance benefits of steel were too compelling to ignore. The first crack in the dam appeared in 1924, when the USGA, facing an undeniable shift in player preference and technological advancement, finally relented. They legalized steel shafts, though initially with the cautious caveat, they were only permitted for putters in the US Open. It was a small concession, but a monumental one, signaling that the tide was turning. But the R&A, the bastion of golf tradition, remained steadfast. Their resistance was legendary, their commitment to the game's heritage unwavering. Yet, even the most unyielding walls can crumble under the right pressure. That pressure came, perhaps unexpectedly, from royalty. In 1929, the Prince of Wales, a keen golfer and a figure of immense influence, was seen openly playing with steel-shafted clubs at none other than St. Andrews, the spiritual home of golf. The image of the future king embracing the forbidden technology was a powerful symbol. It was the final straw. Later that year, the R&A, with a somewhat reluctant statement, finally approved steel shafts. The rebellion had officially won. By the mid-1930s, the battle was decisively over. Steel shafts had triumphed, and the game of golf was irrevocably transformed. The increased consistency, durability, and performance of steel allowed for a standardization of clubs that had been impossible with hickory. This shift fundamentally changed how golf was played and taught. The focus moved from adapting to the quirks of each wooden shaft to perfecting a repeatable swing that could maximize the uniform performance of steel. This technological leap was not just an improvement, it was a revolution that laid the groundwork for the modern game we know today, with its emphasis on power, precision, and ever-advancing equipment. The story of steel versus hickory is far more than a footnote in golf history. It's a powerful reminder that even in the most traditional of pursuits, progress is an unstoppable force. It's a testament to the human drive for improvement and the sometimes painful process of letting go of the past to embrace the future. The next time you step onto the course, gripping your sleek, powerful steel-shafted club, take a moment to remember the rebellion of the 1930s.